Your brain runs approximately 70,000 thoughts per day. Most of them are repeats from yesterday, and the day before that, and the decade before that. There's a mental state where that number drops to zero, and in that silence, something extraordinary becomes possible. If you've been trying to change your beliefs, your habits, or your self-image, and hitting the same wall every time, the missing piece might be the one thing you've never actually experienced: nothing. Think about the last time you tried to install a new belief. Maybe you stood in front of a mirror repeating affirmations. Maybe you journaled. Maybe you visualized the life you wanted so hard your teeth clenched. And maybe it worked for an afternoon. Then the old patterns flooded back, louder than before, like a river rerouting around a pebble. The reason is mechanical. Your subconscious mind processes information thousands of times faster than your conscious awareness. Every new thought you try to plant gets screened by existing beliefs before it reaches the soil. You're essentially trying to update software while the old version is actively running and rejecting the patch. This is where the void state enters the picture, and why contemplative traditions across centuries kept circling back to the same counterintuitive instruction: stop thinking entirely. The void state goes by different names depending on who's describing it. In meditation literature, it overlaps with what's called cessation or nirodha. In hypnotherapy, it resembles the somnambulistic trance depth. Some researchers studying sensory deprivation tanks documented a similar phenomenon in the late 1960s. The common thread is a state of consciousness where the internal monologue stops, sensory awareness dims to near zero, and the sense of having a body fades. You're awake, you're aware, but the awareness has no object. It's pointing at nothing. That sounds abstract until you felt it. The closest everyday analogy is that half-second gap between sleep and waking, when you're conscious but haven't yet remembered who you are, where you are, or what day it is. Pure awareness without content. The void state is that gap, sustained and deepened. So why would anyone want to sit in cognitive darkness on purpose? Because of what happens to the gatekeeper. Your subconscious has a filter, a critical faculty that evaluates incoming information against your existing belief structure. Every thought, suggestion, and intention gets checked at the door. If the new input conflicts with what's already installed, the filter rejects it. This is why someone with deep-seated beliefs about their own worthlessness can repeat "I am enough" 10,000 times and feel nothing shift. The words bounce off a wall they can't see. During the void state, that filter goes quiet. Brain imaging studies on advanced meditators show dramatic reductions in activity across the default mode network, the web of brain regions responsible for self-referential thinking, mental time travel, and narrative identity. When that network powers down, the story you've been telling yourself about who you are goes temporarily offline, and in that window, the subconscious becomes receptive in a way it almost never is during ordinary waking life. Think of it like this. You've lived in the same house for years. The walls are covered in old wallpaper, layer upon layer, some from childhood, some from relationships, some from offhand comments a teacher made when you were 9. You want to put up something new, something you actually chose. But every time you try to paste it over the existing layers, it peels off within days. The void state strips the walls bare, down to raw plaster, and on raw plaster, whatever you apply next actually adheres. The practical question is how to get there, and this is where most people stall. The void state sits at the far end of a relaxation spectrum that most meditators never reach it. Effort is the opposite of what's required. Every attempt to force the mind into silence creates a new thought about forcing the mind into silence, which creates another thought about that thought. The loop feeds itself. The reliable entry method works more like surrender than effort. You begin by lying down in total darkness and silence. Eyes closed, no guided audio, no music, no anchor point. You let your body relax until the sensation of weight against the surface beneath you starts to fade. Then you let your thoughts pass without engaging any of them. And this is the critical distinction. You're aware thoughts are occurring, you just decline every invitation to follow one. Each thought is a door. You stay in the hallway. What happens next varies by person, but the sequence tends to follow a pattern. First, the gaps between thoughts get longer. Seconds stretch. The mental chatter thins out like a crowd leaving a stadium. Then the body awareness starts dissolving, fingers first, then limbs, then the sense of having a physical boundary at all. Some people describe feeling like they're floating. Others say the room seems to expand infinitely around them. The emotional tone shifts to something hard to name. Calm, but emptier than calm. Neutral in a way that feels vast. This is the edge of the void. Most people pull back here because the ego interprets the dissolution of identity as a threat. A sudden jolt of anxiety, a twitch, an urgent thought that yanks you back to the surface. That reaction is the gatekeeper's last stand. It's the critical faculty doing exactly what it's designed to do, maintaining the existing sense of self. Getting past it requires a willingness to let go of who you think you are, temporarily, completely. Once you're through, the void itself is strangely simple. No fear, no bliss, no boredom. Awareness without furniture. And this is the window, usually lasting seconds to minutes in the beginning, where subconscious reprogramming becomes possible. The technique used inside this window matters. Affirmations still work here, but they work differently. The most effective approach involves pre-selecting a single specific belief you want to install, phrased in present tense, in first person, in sensory language. Instead of, "I am confident," something anchored in experience, I walk into rooms and feel the ground solid under my feet, my chest open, my voice steady. The subconscious responds to images and sensations far more than abstract labels. Feed it a movie, not a headline. Some practitioners layer this with emotional charge. Before entering the void, they spend time genuinely feeling the emotion associated with the desired state. The warmth, the lightness, the specific physical signature of the feeling they want to normalize. Then they let that emotional residue follow them into the void, where it imprints without resistance. The belief and the feeling fuse together in a space where nothing is competing for bandwidth. The results, for those who manage to access this consistently, tend to follow a delayed curve. The first few sessions feel like nothing happened. A week in, small behavioral shifts start surfacing, reacting differently to a trigger that usually spirals, choosing something out of character without consciously deciding to. The changes feel less like willpower and more like preference, as if someone quietly rearranged the furniture while you slept, and the new layout just made more sense. Critics of this approach raise a fair point. Controlled studies on the void state specifically are sparse. Most of the clinical research focuses on meditation broadly. And broad meditation encompasses everything from focused attention to loving-kindness practice to body scans, techniques with very different neural signatures. Lumping them together muddies the data. The honest answer is that the void state sits at the edge of what current neuroscience can cleanly measure, partly because inducing it inside an fMRI machine is almost impossible. The machine is loud, the environment is clinical, the state requires the opposite of clinical. What we do have is convergent evidence from adjacent fields. Hypnotherapy research shows that suggestions delivered during deep trance states with similar characteristics to the void, produce measurably different outcomes than suggestions delivered during light relaxation. Sensory deprivation research from the 1970s demonstrated accelerated learning and belief change in float tank environments that strip away external input. And long-term meditators who report experiencing cessation events show structural brain differences in regions associated with emotional regulation and self-concept flexibility. The threads point in the same direction, even if no single study ties the bow. The deeper implication is uncomfortable in a specific way. If your beliefs are the operating system and the void state grants right access, then the responsibility shifts entirely to you. Every belief you're currently running, about money, about relationships, about what you deserve, persists because the subconscious has never been given a clean alternative in a state where it could actually receive one. You've been whispering new instructions to a mind that was too busy listening to old ones. There's a version of you running different software. Same hardware, same history, different instructions loaded during a moment of silence, deep enough that nothing argued back. The distance between who you are and who that version is might be narrower than you think, measured in minutes of stillness, in the willingness to sit with nothing long enough for nothing to become a doorway. And the strangest part is what long-term practitioners report after months of this work. The void stops feeling empty. It starts feeling like the only room in the house that was ever truly yours.